and the students from Ukraine. Sir, after 40 days of declaration of military operation in Ukraine by Vladimir Putin, things have unraveled to a reasonable degree of catastrophic dimensions of the conflagration. Sir, so the discussion under Rule 193 at this juncture is highly inevitable, and it is highly required to have a prompt response from the Government of India relating to the current geopolitical impact due to the war. So it is the right time by which we are discussing about the Ukraine crisis, so as to have the House will be getting an immediate and prompt response from the Government of India. What is the current geopolitical impact, and what is the stand of India's position in respect of the Ukraine crisis? So once again, I take this opportunity to congratulate and express my sincere thanks to the Honorable Speaker for admitting this motion under Rule 193 and giving an opportunity to initiate this discussion. Sir, before entering into the basic issue of Ukraine crisis, I would like to say a few words about the Operation Ganga mission carried out by the Government of India under the leadership of Ministry of External Affairs. Sir, I fully associate with the Foreign Minister's statement in para 26 of the statement commending the efforts of Government of India, the officials of Ministry of External Affairs, particularly the concerned embassies, Ministry of Civil Aviation, Ministry of Defense, NDRF, Indian Air Force, private airlines, and all those who have worked tirelessly and selflessly worked for the safe return of the Indian national from Ukraine. Sir, I do admit the fact that the government did a good job in bringing more than 20,000 people back to India. I would like to place it on record, the good thing the government has done. Sir, but at the same time, I am making an appreciation on record. I would like to make some critical observations regarding the Operation Ganga mission carried out by the Government of India. So the first critical observation is, number one, the evacuation program could have been better if early cautious steps were taken to commence the operation as other countries have done. Sir, for example, the first advisory of the Ministry of External Affairs issued on 15th February. Sir, the advisory lacks clarity and direction. That is, the first advisory of Ministry of External Affairs and the embassies in Ukraine regarding the crisis, it was lacking clarity and it was lacking direction. Sir, what was the first advisory says, I quote, sir, in view of the uncertainties of the current situation in Ukraine, Indian nationals in Ukraine, particularly students who stay, is not essential, may consider leave temporarily. Sir, unquote. That means in view of the uncertainties of the current situation in Ukraine, Indian nationals in Ukraine, particularly the students whose stay is not essential, may consider leave temporarily. This was the first advisory issued by the Ministry of External Affairs on 15th February. Sir, you may kindly see the advisory issued by the United States of America on 11th February 2022, in which a specific direction has been given that American citizens not to travel to Ukraine and asking those who are in Ukraine to leave immediately. Sir, the US advisory was very explicit and clear direction has been given. I would like to quote the US advisory also. Sir, I quote, we want to be crystal clear on this point. Any American in Ukraine should leave as soon as possible and in any event in the next 24 to 48 hours. Unquote. This was the advisory issued by the US Embassy and the US ME officials. Sir, similarly on 12th and 13th February, New Zealand and Australia issued advisories asking their citizens to leave immediately, as did many other countries such as Britain, Japan, Norway, etc. Sir, non-essential citizens may consider leave temporarily is the direction given by the Government of India, given by the Ministry of External Affairs. According to me, this is a strategic flaw on our part in the evacuation process by name which we call Operation Ganga. Sir, the hardships which you have mentioned in the statement, detailed explanation is there. The hardship the Government of India has faced in evacuating and bringing back the people of India, stranded people of India from Ukraine is absolutely correct, and I do accept the fact it could have been avoided. That miseries could have been avoided or averted if we had acted as other countries have done. This is the first strategic flaw which I would like to point out. Sir, the second one is another strategic flaw in the Operation Ganga mission is that priority should have been given to evacuate the students from bunkers in Sumy, Kharkiv and Kyiv instead of those in western Ukraine, where there was no conflict or fighting. Sir, you may kindly see over 600 students are trapped in Sumy over 12 days in the midst of bombing without food or water. The feedback from the students and majority of the evacuees is that the government came into the scene only after they have crossed the borders. Sir, within Ukraine, they were mostly at the mercy of the persons called the contractors in their language. So, sir, when we take pride and credit in the evacuation of more than 20,000 people back to India, we have to introspect ourselves that whether we have acted promptly in time, that has to be introspected by ourselves, for which a critical analysis is required. That is the second drawback or second strategic flaw on the part of our side in evacuation process. Sir, with these students back to India, now the government's priority should be how to recoup the loss to thousands of these students. Sir, I would like to request the Honorable Health Minister to resolve the matter of students as soon as possible in the interest of their these young citizens, because they are in big trouble. The issue of the students who have already returned from Ukraine, most of them are medical graduate students. Their issue has to be dealt with and is to be resolved. I think that the government of India should take initiative in resolving their issue with National Medical Commission. The Health and Family Welfare Ministry has to take the initiative. And further, sir, it would be unfair on my part if I do not mention the name of Naveen Shekarappa, sir, who tragically lost his life at such a young age in Ukraine due to injuries sustained due to the shelling. Sir, his parents donated his body for medical research. Overcoming their irreparable loss should remain a lesson for all of us, and I bow in reverence to these parents because they have done a wonderful thing, and that loss has to be mentioned here. So I salute the parents for the wonderful thing which they have done. Sir, the next point, this is regarding the Operation Ganga mission carried out by the Government of India. A critical analysis definitely is required at the time when we appreciate the earnest efforts taken by the Government of India. Critical evaluation of the program is highly essential so as to have a lesson in the future programs. So definitely such an evaluation would come. I hope that it would come from the Honorable External Affairs Minister, the Foreign Minister. So now coming to the second point which I would like to make under 193 discussion is the diplomatic stand of India in the current crisis. Sir, I know it very well that it is a tricky position. Sir, analysts and experts were initially of the opinion factoring in only the relative size and strength of the two warring parties. Sir, but the situation is drastically changed after 40 days. Sir, Ukraine is not the only casualty in this war. Ukraine and Russian Federation have 4 edges between being granaries of several nations in Asia, Europe and Africa. Sir, the war has disrupted the supply chains and created conditions of acute shortage and severe inflation and hunger. Sir, the ongoing war, in fact, has worsened the situation, already under severe stress due to the damage caused to the lives and livelihoods due to the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. Sir, the special military operation by the Russian Federation on a sovereign nation has brought swift retaliation from the Western nations supporting Ukraine. Sir, there has been a flurry of economic and trade sanctions against the Russian Federation, which are severest since the World War II, which happened more than 80 years ago. Sir, the geopolitics has literally polarized with the collective stand of NATO with the West and Russia with its supports mainly from the East. Such a polarization has already come into place. Sir, at this juncture, India's political stand in this issue is of paramount importance and significance. Sir, our Foreign Minister, Sri Jaishankar ji, had reiterated our stand on Ukraine conflict as, I quote, steadfast and consistent, and he stood for peace. I fully agree, unquote, I fully agree and I appreciate the stand taken by the Government of India in the Ukraine crisis. Whereas the US President, Mr. Joe Biden, has criticized India's position or India's stand as shaky. And sir, even the recent days, the countries belonging to the West, they have even cautioned India about the attempts to circumvent the financial sanction which they have put in the Russian Federation. That caution has also been given from the West that has to be taken very seriously. Sir, this could be attributed, this caution, I'm not using the word warning, maybe the caution given by the West, even during there with so many eminent personalities have already visited our country, and there are all these eminent foreign officials who are here in Delhi, our national capital, and also indirectly it is a warning or cautioning government of India if you are circumventing the financial sanctions put in on Russian Federation. Maybe because of the three reasons. Number one, sir. Sir, in early November 2020, India voted against Ukraine. Ukraine sponsored a resolution in the human rights violation in Crimea. That is the controversial place. And number two, India's abstention from voting in the UN Security Council and UN General Assembly in the Ukraine issue, which might have upsetted the anti-Russian camp, and we have seen to be projected as a supporter of the aggressor and losing our democratic credentials. That may be the second reason. And the third one is, sir, the India statement at the United Nations lacked the condemnation of the Russian attack on Ukraine, which the President Vladimir Putin called as a special military operation. These might be the reasons by which this observation has come from the West. Definitely that has to be cleared. Sir, it is a very interesting geopolitical situation prevailing now in the world. I think this is my common parlance. I'm not an external affairs expert or a foreign affairs expert, but to a common man, I would like to think it's a very interesting position now, present geopolitical situation. So number one is, the 36% of the world population lives in countries that have actually condemned the Russian and support of the sanctions on the Russian economy, such as US, those are in the European Union, as well as UK, Japan, Australia, and Canada. Number one. And number two, whereas nearly 1/3 of the world's other population lives in a country that remains neutral so far, led by India, Brazil, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and UAE. This is the second part. And the third portion is 32% of the world's population live in country that supports Russia's action. So this is why India's diplomatic stand is of paramount significance that has to be taken in a careful, cautious manner. So the countries in the East, starting from the top to bottom, if you examine, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, they have abstained from the voting in the UN Security Council as well as the UN General Assembly. Sir, so I would like to pose a specific question or a specific clarification to the Honorable Foreign Minister Sri Jaishankar ji, because as an academic, for the academic sake, I would like to know from the Honorable Minister whether this pattern is resulting in the formulation of a neo-geopolitical consensus in the West and the East, whether such a culmination or the formulation is taking place in the world beyond all the political differences, strategic political differences, such a formulation is coming into existence. I would like to seek the clarification from the Honorable Minister, and also would like to know the political stand in this respect as far as India is concerned. Sir, coming to the India and Russia relations, sir, India has a long-standing relationship with Russia, with both strategic and political. Sir, 60 to 70% of India's military hardware is of Russia origin. Not only that, India-Russia military technical cooperation has evolved from a buyer-seller framework to one involving in joint research, development, and production of advanced technologies and systems. This is extremely crucial, sir. This is extremely crucial at a time when India has an ongoing border standoff with China. Sir, in the early years, USSR as well as Russia has used their veto power in UN Security Council 6 times. Sir, in the year 1957 over the Kashmir issue, when the then leader of Soviet Union, Khrushchev, has said Moscow was just across the border, and in case of any trouble in Kashmir, Delhi should just give a shout to the USSR. That was in the year 1957. Sir, in 1961, as per the report of Khrushchev, they sent a telegram to the former Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, in which he said that India's action to do away with the outpost of colonialism in its territory is absolutely lawful and justified. And sir, in 1962, where Russia vetoed the Irish resolution in the UN Security Council, urging India and Pakistan to directly negotiate in the Kashmir issue. Sir, in the year 1971, it is very interesting, the USSR has thrice had exercised that veto power in favor of India. And that too, to ensure that the issue remains a bilateral one, instead of becoming a global concern and attracting the Indian friends of the third-party nations. And two, that the UN could not pass a resolution in favor of ceasefire between India and Pakistan. This is the stand taken by USSR since 1957 until this time. So, sir, my point is, thus Russia has proven itself to be a trustworthy strategic partner of India and time-tested ally. This is my observation in respect of our relation with Russia. Sir, coming to the economic impact of the crisis. Sir, on a macroeconomic study, it can be seen that the economic repercussions in this crisis is manifold, which one of them is direct repercussion that stems from this is of the elevated oil prices. So Russia is the world's third largest producer and exporter of oil after US and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, meeting 10% of the global demand. So in the early days of the crisis, the price, I'm not going to the details, sir. Sir, this crisis will also overthrow out of kilter the macroeconomic assumptions on which projections in budget